Welcome, everyone, to the Passive Income Show. We are totally excited tonight to feature Jake Bartlett. He's actually a Skillshare instructor, and we're going to learn all about Skillshare tonight. And this is really timely, I think, because a lot of instructors are looking at other platforms and starting to see where they might be able to publish their courses other than some of the big name platforms. So I want to welcome my co-host, Phil, and welcome our guest, Jake. And welcome, Jake.
Thank you.
And Phil is going to be doing the bulk of the questions, but I'm going to throw in some questions here and there as we go, because I actually started, I tried getting my courses on Skillshare, and this was about 2 years ago, and they had certain guidelines and restrictions, and for some reason it just didn't seem like either they took my courses or what, so I didn't really pursue it much. So this will be really interesting for me to just learn really from an insider's perspective, how Skillshare works. So welcome aboard.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
super excited about this. And just a reminder for everyone watching, you can ask us questions in the comments to the right. And if you do a /Q, we'll get it. It will be posted as a question, and we can pop that up for everyone to see. That is super helpful. Give us some props if you're liking what we're talking about, especially for Jake for being here, taking the time to be here. And yeah, you can follow us on Twitter or on Blab by clicking on our names and icons and following us. So let's get right into the interview. And first, Jake, can you tell us a little bit just about yourself? What's your background? And for people that don't know, you're a motion graphics designer, and that's what you teach online classes about. And how did you get into that?
Sure. Yeah, I was very fortunate to have a brother who was 8 years older than me. So one summer he came home from college and he introduced me to Premiere Pro and After Effects. And he showed me how to put lightsabers on videos. And that introduced me to the whole world of visual effects and videocopilot.net pretty much. And that got me into a little bit of animation, mostly just doing tutorials to make very specific effects. But it put me ahead in high school of a lot of my peers because I went in knowing about software that they weren't even teaching. Like, they were learning Photoshop and Illustrator by the time I was already getting pretty good at After Effects. So I went into college not exactly knowing what I wanted to do. By my junior year, I figured I wanted to be either an editor or a motion graphics artist. And so I went to a 1-semester film program out here in LA, and I got to see what the whole production movie process was. I got to intern at Sony Pictures Imageworks, which is their 3D company, and see how that whole workflow worked. And I quickly realized that I could be a type of creative that I enjoyed more as a motion graphics artist. I don't want to discount editing. I've done plenty of it. I know that's a very creative field, but I felt like graphic design was my minor, and I felt like motion graphics is graphic design, but then getting to make it move. And I really enjoyed that. So that's what I pursued. And after I graduated in 2010 and got a job on my way moving out here, a friend of mine just said, "Hey, I'm working at a place. They need a motion graphics guy. Send me a reel." I sent it. And then I had a job for almost 5 years at that same production company doing After Effects work and a little bit of editing. And nice. I left on my own. It wasn't even a thing where I lost my job. I just got enough side work over 2014, and Skillshare came into the picture that I decided that I wanted to do this on my own and work for myself. So that's how I got where I am now.
Nice. So first off, that's awesome that you had a job for 5 years, and it sounds like it was about 2009-ish to 2014, which, for a lot of people, that was a hard time to find a job, a steady job, especially coming right out of school. So that's really awesome that you had the skill and you dedicated yourself to learning a skill with basically videocopilot.net or .com. And were you learning the motion graphics in school, or was it really just self-taught?
It was completely self-taught. I never once was required to open After Effects in any education, which is kind of sad and pretty amazing that now I'm teaching it. But yeah, it was all self-taught. Videocopilot.net and Creative Cow I would basically just search for fun things to do and taught myself the software through that. And like I said, early on, it was mostly visual effects. I didn't really get into motion graphics, animation-based motion graphics until probably around 2013. And that's when that appealed to me, and I started researching it more and finding other artists, being aware of other artists, and finding websites like School of Motion and Mount MoGraph. And that's where I really started to make the shift and realizing that's the direction I wanted to go.
Got it. And so we're going to jump into Skillshare in a second, but just for everyone watching that right now, I just want to kind of highlight this point that Jake was basically self-taught in doing motion graphics and visual effects. He learned it on his own with tutorials online, and now he's teaching it and basically supporting himself and a freelance / just passive income lifestyle with something that he's self-taught. And I just think that's really amazing. You don't have to be an expert, quote unquote expert or guru that has a master's or doctorate to be able to teach online classes. You just have to know something that someone else wants to know and be able to teach it. And I know because I've actually taken a couple of Jake's classes on Skillshare, and he does an amazing job at just being very clear, and he makes it fun, and they're very well produced. And we're going to talk about the production of all of his classes in a bit. But first, can you talk about how you found Skillshare, and why did you even try to teach a class on Skillshare?
It's going to sound funny, but I heard of Skillshare through my wife. She was pretty big on Pinterest, and she found a hand lettering course that was going to be released on Skillshare by a teacher named Mary Kate McDivitt. She's one of the most successful teachers on Skillshare. But at the time, it was her first hand lettering class, and now it's, I think, one of the top 3 classes on all of Skillshare. It has over 25,000 students. Anyway, that's how she found it. She took the class. I kind of just peeked over her shoulder every now and then to see what she was doing. But at the time, that was when Skillshare was doing an a la carte method where you were paying for every class you took. And so, I wasn't all that interested in spending money to learn about After Effects because I had, a wealth of information already online for free. But my wife said I should check it out. I looked around on the account. I just searched for After Effects, and there were probably only 4 classes at the time. And so that's when I was like, maybe this could be my chance to teach, because I always thought I would enjoy teaching. I just never really thought that would be a possibility for me financially. I didn't think I'd be able to support my family, especially living in Los Angeles, as a teacher. But I thought I would enjoy it. So I looked into it a little bit, and I wasn't too motivated at the time, but a couple weeks later, my wife got an email that said, Skillshare is running a teach challenge, and all you have to do is submit a proposal for a class, and the best proposal is going to win a MacBook Air. And I was like, well, there's motivation. And so I wrote out a proposal for my first class, which was animating kinetic type in After Effects, and they ended up picking it. And wow, I won a MacBook Air, which was pretty awesome. And that is really what got me started in teaching.
And when was that?
That would have been, I believe, at the end of 2013.
Okay.
That I won. Yeah. And I had that class up for almost a year before I taught another one.
Nice. Okay. So that's when you started, and talk to us about how that transitioned into now you are making a decent income every month on Skillshare. After you created that first class, did you automatically see students enroll in it, or did you do any promotion on your own, or did you just kind of put the course up on Skillshare and let it go?
Well, honestly, I still don't have much of an online following off of the Skillshare platform. So at the time, I didn't really have any pull in advertising it on my own. I got lucky that I won that Teach Challenge because they sent that out as an announcement to all of their, to the people on the newsletter, basically. And so I think that got me in front of a lot of eyes, but at the same time, there wasn't the biggest audience for After Effects on the platform at the time. Like I said, there were only 4 other classes when I submitted my proposal, but I think the project that I created for that class, which was animating your favorite TV show or movie quote, I think that kind of stuck out as a fun thing to do compared to other projects that were on the site. And yeah, honestly, I don't feel like it was anything I did. Students just started enrolling. And honestly, at that time, I was totally fine with my class flopping. I was super happy to have just won a laptop. And I was like, if that's all I get, awesome. But I don't remember the exact timeline of how many students I got. How quickly I got them. Sorry, skateboarders are going by.
Darn skaters.
Yeah. But I remember the first month, I believe I had $1,200 from that class. And
wow.
So that was mind blowing to me. I didn't expect that at all. And like I said, that was back when students were choosing to pay for my class on its own. Now it's switched over to a membership model where you just pay for the entire site. But at that time, students were willing to pay, I believe it was $18 to take my class. And I was getting positive reviews. I was getting projects submitted. I was getting a lot of student engagement. So I was thrilled, to say the least.
Nice. And that's one thing about Skillshare that I've realized. Well, for people who don't know, whenever you post a class, you have to have an official class project with your class. And it's a major part of not only your class, but also the promotion of your class. Because like Jake is talking about, he had a fun, popular project. And when you go on Skillshare's site, you'll see not only the classes, but you'll see the projects that students are submitting in a variety of places, even on their homepage, I think. And so if you have a cool project in your class and there's a ton of people doing that project, everybody that goes to Skillshare is going to see other people doing your projects, and that's going to make them want to do it themselves. And that's one thing. Dave and I are on Udemy, and while we love Udemy, I would love to see more of a project-based option for Udemy classes, because you have to kind of finagle it, like do it yourself. And there's no real projects in Udemy right now. So yeah, that's one thing to know about Skillshare. And so you taught this class, and now can you kind of talk to us about what kind of income you're making? You don't have to be specific if you don't want to, but how has Skillshare changed your life? Were you working still at your other job while you created your first class?
Yeah, I was. And at that time, I wasn't even really freelancing that much. I did some, a little bit of things here and there for friends, but in terms of my career, I was still working my day job. And so the Skillshare class came, and that's the other thing about making Skillshare classes. You make it, and then all you have to do is basically babysit your students, check in on them, making sure that if they have questions, the questions get answered, and give project feedback. But most of the work is done up front. So I pretty much just went about my business, doing my own thing. And I thought maybe it'd be fun to teach another class, but I didn't know when that would happen or anything about the future of Skillshare. So I just left my class there to see how well it would do. But that was the end of 2013, and by the end of 2014 is when I had made enough connections through my job and producers I had worked with to, just by word of mouth, I know this guy, he's a motion graphics artist, you should hire him. And so I started doing work on nights and weekends at home for other people, and it ended up getting so busy that by the end of 2014, my day job was taking away from my freelance. I would get up at 5 a.m. and work until I had to leave at 9. And then I'd work my day job, and I'd get home and eat as fast as I could so that I could work until 2 a.m. And that wasn't very sustainable. But that's when I realized, I should be doing this for myself. There's no reason why I couldn't just quit and work for myself.
Right.
And it was just really serendipitous that the day that I gave my two weeks notice, 30 minutes after I talked to my boss, I got an email from Skillshare asking if I wanted to teach again. And they offered to put me in this thing that they were launching, which Phil is actually part of as well, the Creators Club, where they take their top teachers, and it's basically just a community where we're in direct contact with their staff. They make themselves very accessible to us. and they help out however they can. And so that was very attractive to me because by that point, Skillshare had switched over to the membership model. So now you can pay $10 a month, or I believe it's $60 a year, and have access to everything on the website. And that sounds awesome as a student, and it is. But for teachers, going from charging $18 for every student to suddenly anyone can pay $10 and have access to all my classes, it really tanked our profits. And there was kind of a big deal for all of us teachers. And there was even a private Facebook group that had no Skillshare staff included, where people basically griped about how sales like Skillshare is not going to work anymore. And at that point, I pretty much just decided it was nice while it lasted. And again, I won the laptop. I made a couple $1,000s, but you know, I don't think it's for me anymore. So bringing that all back around, that's when they asked me to teach again, and they said that they would, you know, promote my class and they would help me build it if I needed the help. So I said, what the heck? I'm quitting my job anyway, so maybe I can get a few more $1,000s out of this. And at that point, I had just under 2,000 followers on the platform, and I posted my second class in January of 2015, and I made, I think, 1,000 more followers that month.
Wow.
And I ended up making like $1,200 again in that first month. And so I was like, well, maybe this membership model isn't such a bad thing because I can reach so many more people and the profit isn't bad at all. So bringing that all back to, sorry, Phil, I know your question was how much am I making? And I'm fine discussing that. You know, at the beginning, I was making around $1,500 a month every month. But after the first month of posting a new class, I mean, that first month is really when the bulk of new students came in, because that posting a new class, you kind of get a little bit of automatic promotion from Skillshare. And then once students start enrolling, your class can start trending. And if your class is trending, it shows up further up on the list on the homepage. So naturally, students kind of have a surge of enrollments at the beginning of your class. And by the second month, you're not going to make nearly as much as you did the first month, but you still will make money. And it's not like your class is just going to die eventually. For me, my first class still gets around 200 enrollments a month, which is a lot. I mean, when you put that over 12 months and you consider that I've been trying to post a class every month. So at this point, I think I have 12 up. So I post a new class and that gets a surge of students, which is a big payout, plus 11 other classes that, you know, residual enrollments brought in. So the last couple months, I've made over $5,000. And on top of that, my wife is now teaching Photoshop classes, and she's being even more successful than I am because I think there's just a larger audience for Photoshop artists.
Wow.
So if you look at the numbers of just how quickly she can get to 1,000 students compared to how quickly I get to 1,000 students, she's doing better than me. So combined, we're making over $6,000 a month. And really, it grows every month that I post a new class.
Hey,
nice. That's awesome.
Hey, Jake, we have another box if you want your wife to join us.
Oh, yeah. She's got my 6-month-old right now.
Oh, okay.
He's napping.
Yeah, I was just kidding. Yeah. But that's pretty awesome because it shows that, you know, just like on Udemy where we spend a lot of our time, there's certain topics that are just that much more popular, and so they're gonna get traction quicker. And that's exciting that you guys are an online teaching family. You know, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You have a 6-year-old, because that just makes me feel like if I was in your shoes, I'd be so stressed about quitting my job, because I'm sure at that time you probably knew that you had a baby on the way. And,
a 6-month-old. Yeah. That was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to quit my job, was because I wanted to be at home. It was a nerve-wracking decision for sure, but I wanted to be home for the pregnancy and for when he was here. And fortunately, work has not slowed down and Skillshare has just grown. So it's worked out, but it was a big leap for sure.
That's amazing. And so for people who are listening, I think that's one of the reasons I love Skillshare a lot. If you are a new instructor, whenever you post a course, all of your previous students are notified automatically. So on Udemy, we can send out a promotional announcement, but on Skillshare, it just automatically sends to all of your previous students, hey, Jake's created another course. And like Jake says, if you have 12 courses and you publish another one, a lot of those students are going to want to enroll in your new course. The other thing is that on the homepage and on all the category pages on Skillshare, there's trending sections for the top courses. And so there's I would say a more organic way of getting higher in the search and being able to be viewed easier than on Udemy, because the search algorithm for Udemy has always been a little bit wonky. They handpick the courses that are on the homepage. And so you could really, if you do have an audience and you can kind of just push your courses in front of a couple hundred people when you launch it, it does get into that trending section fairly easily, especially right now. I mean, Skillshare has been around for a little while. I mean, a few years now, but I'd still say it's kind of new in terms of there's not that many instructors, there's not that many courses. I think it's kind of exploding now and over the past few months, but it's still a really great time to get on. And I think coming from Udemy, I always talk to people about like, oh yeah, you should just throw your stuff on Skillshare or all these other sites just for extra income. But Jake's making and his wife are making $6,000 a month on Skillshare. That's a full-time income and then some for a lot of people in a lot of places in the world. And so I just think that's really amazing.
It's pretty crazy to think too, because if I was living somewhere else, I could be making the same amount. It's not based on a location. You know, moving to Los Angeles, the rent increases, but so does the income. But I could be living back in Michigan where I grew up and be still making that $6,000 a month. So
yeah, or in some other country or wherever.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's an interesting concept. And I'm wondering, because now you've taught these classes, you're making a lot of money with your classes on Skillshare, and it sounds like you're still doing freelance. Do you ever wonder to yourself, like, why don't I just teach online classes? Or how do you balance freelance work with just teaching?
Oh, it's the biggest struggle. For sure, because I love teaching. I love making classes because it's fun. It's just, I basically find something that I enjoy and figure out how to teach it and make a fun project with it. So it's almost not work. But the reality is, I don't know how long Skillshare is going to last. So I have to balance it. That forces me to balance my freelance work with Skillshare. And there have been times where I have gotten so busy with freelance that I missed a month on Skillshare, and that hurt because I knew that probably took close to $2,000 away from my payout. So I don't think I've found the perfect balance yet. I'm getting closer every month, I think, but I turn down way more freelance now than I did when I first started in 2015, January of last year. I said yes to everything because I didn't know that Skillshare was going to be as big of a deal as it is. And I didn't know how much work was going to come in. And there was in February, a week where nothing was happening. And one person randomly found me on Vimeo, and he ended up turning into like my third biggest client the entire year. So it's weird because I didn't really research strategies for freelancing or how to deal with clients. I dealt with enough clients through my other job and over that 2014 year to kind of be able to pick and choose, be able to spot the clients that I wouldn't enjoy working for. Doesn't mean that I didn't take the work. That first year, I said yes to so much that I could have just been making Skillshare classes instead of taking, a $500 logo animation for a YouTube show or something like that.
Yeah.
So that first year was definitely a learning process of like, is this going to be worth my time? I kind of look at it now as, is it going to pay me enough to be worth it? Or is it going to be fun enough for me to want to do it? Because if it's something that I really enjoy, I mean, I'm a motion graphics artist first and a Skillshare teacher second. So obviously I want to be doing motion graphics and becoming a better artist. So if I can find a job that I'm going to enjoy, I'd take a price cut if if it was something that I really wanted to do, or for a client that I really wanted to work for. I'd be able to justify doing that now that I have Skillshare's classes backlogged, basically making me money.
Yeah, and I think that's what's amazing is it gives you that freedom to kind of pick and choose what projects you want to take and all of that flexibility. So in terms of your classes, are you doing any other promotion outside of Skillshare to drive people to your courses, or is it just really within Skillshare?
Like I said, I don't really have a following off of Skillshare. So the majority of it is still on the platform. But I mean, every class I post on my Instagram and my Twitter and my Dribble account, I always post there. I think I have like 500 people following me on Dribble at this point and maybe 700 on Instagram. But I think the majority of people who are finding me or at least enrolling in my classes, are already following me on Skillshare. But it seems like every class that I post, I get close to maybe 800 new followers. So at this point, I've almost got 19,000 followers on Skillshare. And so I guess, those are students that are getting notified every time I post a class. So a lot of those are just previous students, the new enrollments. But then there are people who are, I see in my reviews that say that this is the first class I ever took, and it's like the 10th one I made. And then they're discovering all my other classes. So yeah, I'd say that most of the promotion is coming straight on the Skillshare platform.
Yeah. And have you thought about putting your courses on Udemy or other platforms?
I have. In fact, Udemy has reached out to me directly, and a couple of other websites. Just yesterday, I got one from 360training.com. I don't know if you've heard of those, but I remember because I saw your classes on 360 Training. You put that? Okay, good. I
don't know. We can talk offline about 360 Training.
Yeah, there are so many at this point, and I'm assuming they're just discovering me through Skillshare to come out and try and get me to teach on their site. And the reality is I could post the same classes on those platforms. And I guess at this point, I've just become loyal to Skillshare. They've been very good to me, and I've met them. They work, very directly with me. So I haven't needed to. And maybe it's foolish of me. I could put those classes up on Udemy and see how much I can make on there. But I guess just from a personal standpoint, I would feel awful if I put the same content on Udemy and somebody was paid even $20 for one of my classes when they could pay $10 on Skillshare and have access to all of them.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I feel for you, but I would consider it just because you never know if Skillshare is going to die, and you wouldn't want that to happen all of a sudden, because I think Skillshare is a little bit more established and has a better audience and position than Skillfeed. I don't know if you knew about Skillfeed, but Skillfeed was around and they were making me about the same amount that I was making on Skillshare. And one month I was making $1,000 and the next month they were shut down.
Wow.
And it was a big cut to the income that I was making at that point. So I don't think that's going to happen with Skillshare, but it's something to think about. And I'm assuming you haven't thought about posting your classes on your own site or doing anything like that, like self-hosting?
Yeah, not yet. I haven't gotten into that area at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about when it comes to this industry right now, it's so new, that there's going to be a lot of churn in the water. So I was really big into eBay when they first started they started in 95, I started in 98. And I saw these online auction platforms similar to eBay popping up left and right, and people are going here and there, and so there's this churn that happens when a new industry kind of sprouts up. And so you have to kind of be careful which platforms you decide to put your courses on, because you just never know. But also the other side of it is you don't want to be wasting time.
Yeah.
because uploading courses takes so much time to just get the stuff up there. So you want to be sure that you're in the right platforms. I think it would be good right now, Phil, if we could talk a little bit about the Skillshare compensation, the way it works, because I get the sense that a lot of listeners and a lot of people in our audience are probably wondering, okay, I get the sense it's a subscriber based, $10 a month, but how do instructors get paid? So maybe we can cover that.
Yeah, Jake, do you know the details about that?
Yeah, they actually just recently simplified it. So every month, the number of students that are paying, they take all of the payments and split that in half. So 50% goes to Skillshare and 50% goes to teachers. So that's the royalty pool. From there, it's completely based on the number of enrollments that you had. And it's not the number of like students. Like if you enrolled in 3 of my classes, that would count as 3 separate enrollments. And so, say there are 1,000, just to simplify it, say there are 1,000 students paying and I have 100 of them, then 10% of the royalty pool goes to me. Now that's the majority.
10% of new enrollments for that month or total enrollments?
10% of the paying members. So whatever was paid out for that month by students. Now that kind of sucked in January, because January is always the biggest month of the year, and they were really pushing in January this 99 cents for 3 months deal. And because of that, I was expecting to make around $2 a student, and I made $1.21 per student, which was less than I'd ever made on Skillshare. The next month, it jumped back up. So it kind of sucked for that first month, but it fluctuates anywhere from, I'd say, around $1.30 per student to $2 a student, depending on the time of year. It seems like January, people are always like eager to learn. So I think that's why that happens. And there is a couple other ways that you can earn extra income is by using your own referral link. You get a unique link for your class to promote. So if you signed up through my link and then you ended up paying for a subscription, whether it's for a month or a whole year, I get $10 bonus for that payment. And then there's a teacher referral. So if I told you, Phil, you should come teach on Skillshare, and you signed up through my link, I think it's either it's $100 bonus I would get. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. And do you still get paid for projects that are posted in your courses?
Not anymore. And I found out that was I found out that was a very small fraction of the payouts. So much so that I compared how many projects my wife got one month to how many I got, and we still had the identical payout per student. I didn't post a new class, so I had so many less projects than her. I think it was a penny different. So they basically asked us on the Creators Club, would you mind if we just took that out of the equation and just based it on student enrollments? And we were like, yes, please do that. It'll be so much simpler. So
Got it. That's okay. So that makes sense to me now. I totally missed the memo on that. And this is bad because Skillshare has been really good to me, and I don't pay enough attention to it because it is making me a decent amount every month too. And I should be paying more attention because right now I've been making my courses for Udemy and then just posting them on Skillshare. There's been a couple that I've made specifically for Skillshare that did really well. And that's what I want to talk about. It's like, what makes a good Skillshare class? Because I think it's different than Udemy. And I don't know if you know enough about Udemy to know the difference, but I think it has a lot to do about being very project specific and smaller. So what would you say makes a successful Skillshare class?
That's evolved over time for sure. My first class was almost 2 hours long. It had a pretty big project. And it would have taken a lot of work for a student to get through the whole thing and then make a project start to finish. But over the last 3 years, we've discovered that, and I say we, the Skillshare team and the teachers in general have discovered that students really like bite-sized classes that have fun-looking projects. So if you can show your process of how you make a fun-looking project in I'd say a range of 15 to 45 minutes, you're going to be extremely successful. That's not to say that you can't have a longer class. You know, the last class that I did, well, not the last one, but I did I'm doing a 3-part series on character animation right now. The first one was, I think, close to 2 hours. And it's been successful. It's not that students don't want a wealth of knowledge. It's just that a 30-minute class that has a project you can create in that time span of just following along with the video, students are really attracted to that. And you can get a lot of enrollments really quickly and a lot of projects submitted really quickly that way. And like we were talking before, seeing projects come in, students see, oh, I could do something that looks like this. It's not like, here's proof that what that teacher's saying you can do actually can be done. And every week, Skillshare sends out a trending email where they say, here are new classes this week, here are trending classes this week, and here are trending projects. So even student projects can help promote your class because they'll show up in that email as well. I think that's the biggest thing or my biggest advice for making a successful Skillshare class is keeping it short and fun.
Got it. So that's like so cool because it's so different than what Udemy is right now and has been. I think Udemy has been, you create the longest, most complete course, and that's going to be what is most successful in the long run. And that's what has been most successful for me. And I've created shorter courses for Udemy, and they do well when I launch them and promote them. But then after a year or 3 months or 2 months, they don't make as much money. But when I create big masterclass style courses, they do really well. But on Skillshare, it's the complete opposite. It's like 15 to 45-minute classes, you said, a fun, short project. And really, I feel like instead of thinking about what topic can I teach on Skillshare, it's more like what project can I teach on Skillshare and then creating a class around that mini project. So if people are like, because a lot of people are coming without, they're not necessarily creative. They're not teaching creative, like artistic classes on Udemy, or people listening right now. I don't think most are teaching Photoshop or design or those types of things. So they really have to kind of think, they do have to get creative. They have to think, how can I create a fun project teaching whatever it is, PowerPoint or business or social media or whatever it is. And I think that's what works well on Skillshare, and something visual is definitely beneficial because you see those projects and you see it looking cool and you want to do that. So if you are teaching a class on how to get do better on social media or whatever, you might want to think of a project like how to create a cool social media post or something like that, that you can visualize, rather than just like like a project being like, get 10 more followers on Instagram or whatever, or something simple like that. So
that's interesting. As I'm thinking about that, I do a lot of internet marketing courses, e-commerce courses. Some of those would not really be project-based courses, right? But then there are other things I've taught, like how to create an email list in Aweber, or how to create 3D ebook cover designs that are perfect for that kind of model. So I think you guys, since you guys are both on Skillshare, do you guys know how you might create a project for something that's a little less project-y?
I think that the best research you can do for that type of thing is just seeing what other teachers have done, and looking at what's most successful. I was talking, I got to visit the Skillshare headquarters in New York a couple weeks ago, and was talking with the community team about that, and saying that I thought Skillshare kind of lent itself more to the creative, arty crowd. But they said that's really not the case, that there have been plenty of people who do business classes or, SEO for your website, something like that. Personally, I don't know what those projects are because I've never, that's not my field. So I haven't gone to see what those classes are. But, like Phil was saying with the social media posts, if you can say, do these things, that this is my process to promoting my Instagram, and you'll get 100 followers in a month or a week, then the project could just be like, follow my process and share your results.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. As I was thinking about it, as you were saying it, it made sense that what you do is you teach what you do, and you teach them how to do it, and that's a project.
Exactly.
It's kind of like Udemy. I mean, Udemy has exercises that they want you to do as an instructor to put into your course. So it's really just kind of like an exercise, right, Phil? Is that what it kind of seems like?
It's really like an exercise, but on Skillshare, it's a big part. Like when you go on your course, when you're taking it as a student, there's like a project tab. And so that's where you post it, which is, I think Udemy's moving in that direction. They might have something like that in the future. And when you create a Skillshare class, it's like, here's your course title and description, and here's your course project. So it's very specific. But yeah, for people coming from Udemy, if you have specific exercises in your class, you can kind of take that and just create a Skillshare course out of it. And even if it's just part of your Udemy class, you could take part of your Udemy class and make it into a smaller Skillshare class, and it might do better than a longer course. Because
there's so much strategy there. Imagine a master class, and then you just take the excerpts out and you turned it into 10 Skillshare projects or classes.
Yeah, and that's something that I found that I did for one of my Udemy classes on wedding photography. I just split it up into multiple classes because I did want to have multiple projects like that. And I like what Jake said about just seeing what's out there. And that's something that I did because I was having relatively okay success on Skillshare, but I didn't have a class that was like getting a lot of students or getting a lot of projects posted. So I did look up, I think I looked up Jake's projects. Maybe it was after taking one of your classes. And then I looked at this other guy, Fraser Davidson. He has another motion graphics class. And that really inspired me to do a project specific class that I just created for Skillshare. So whatever you're teaching, I would say go on Skillshare and check it out and see what projects are being posted. Because if there's a lot of projects being posted for a class, there's a chance it's probably a popular class and people will be interested in your class as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Phil, I know you probably have a few other questions, but I wanted to ask right now, because this is good flow, is what kind of requirements do they have for instructors, or how do they just accept instructors as is, or do they kind of check you out, or what's the process of being an instructor on Skillshare?
I mean, it used to be an application process. When I joined in, you couldn't, it wasn't open. You would have to apply and say what you wanted to teach, what your credentials were. At this point, anyone can teach. I'm not sure what the moderation process is. Once you upload, I'm sure somebody is checking on the class to make sure that it's not stolen property or something, and make sure that it follows the guidelines. But anyone can teach. And as soon as you have 25 students enrolled, that's when you start making money off of your class.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. And I've helped a couple people get started with that. And yeah, it's 25 students and you just start making money from that. So that's it is pretty easy. And I know when I tried to get on Skillshare the very first time, I think it was like 3 years ago or so, and you had to do the application and you had to like prove that you could get like 100 students or something on your own through your own promotion before you could even like launch the course or something. It was something weird like that.
That sounds familiar to me too. Yeah.
It was really difficult. We had a question from up in the chat a while ago. I forget who asked it, but they asked, they said, this is the first time hearing of Skillshare. They checked out the site and they're wondering, how is it possible to be successful on Skillshare if people can just search for skills on YouTube? And this is a question we have as Udemy instructors as well, but I'm interested in what your take on that is.
Well, like I said, I was self-taught. Everything that I learned was based on either trial and error or finding other people who have made tutorials on YouTube or Creative Cow or Video Copilot. You know, there are definitely people who knew what they were doing with tutorials. They knew how to teach. They knew how to make clear, and then at least in my field, and I know, Phil, I'm sure you've seen tutorials where the person giving the instructions is absolutely terrible at describing what they're doing, how to say something clearly, even recording themselves well. So there have been, tutorials where I've learned great things, but it took me 30 minutes of just getting to the one part that I needed to know and say, okay, there's the point in the video. This is what I needed to know. I think on Skillshare, the teachers are making more of an effort to be clear teachers. That's not to say that there aren't bad classes on Skillshare. I'm sure there are from people who aren't putting that much effort into teaching, and they're just hoping they can make some money quick. But the classes that rise to the top, that are getting reviewed well and trending, they're because the information that the teacher's presenting isn't just valuable, but that it's presented clearly. And it's very thought out. I don't know that I've seen a teacher who hasn't edited their footage. I for one, I have millions of edits in my classes. I don't leave a single or pause or messed up line in any of my classes. And that came from watching so many tutorials that I knew, like, this is what I like in a tutorial. This is what I can't stand in a tutorial. So I just based my model of teaching off of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's all so true. And I mean, not to be said that you can't find great tutorials on YouTube that are super high quality, but I think people will pay for a class on Udemy or pay for a subscription on Skillshare. I mean, partly just to have that, it's a different environment. It's it's better for learning. You're in a class that's structured, that gives you a flow of lessons to take rather than a YouTube playlist or having to search around on your own. So I think that's for the person that asked that, and anyone that's worried about that. I've just found that there's going to be people who never pay for anything and they're just going to search on YouTube, but there's a lot of people who will actually pay for classes for the ease of it.
And you're saying it's $10 a month, right? For students?
Insanely cheap.
So, I mean,
it's the cost of like Netflix,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. And I know, like, for me, my wife has taken calligraphy classes on there, and she just loves it. And yeah, it's fun to do the projects. What kind of, I mean, I see your blue snowball there and you got your computer, but what kind of equipment or recording setup do you have?
The blue snowball is everything audio. I don't really have to even do any audio editing. If I do, it's usually just in the trailer of my class. I already had an iMac because I was doing work, on the side. So I needed a powerful machine. I maxed that out when I bought it. But I've made more than one of my classes on this laptop that I'm recording on right now. I use ScreenFlow, the software, to record my screen, and that's about it.
Cool. And so you're not really doing any talking head or video?
Not anymore. I early on, I thought that would be something that I would love to see in more tutorials, was being able to see the instructor and connecting with them on that level. So I did make an effort of recording myself. I have a DSLR. I already had one, so I just used that. But as I posted more and more classes, I kind of just realized that it wasn't worth the time. I don't think it was adding enough value to the classes for the amount of time that it added to the production. And they're there in my old classes. So if a student started at my beginning class of, not my first class, but my beginner's guide to animating custom GIFs, that's my most successful class. They're going to see me, and that's kind of a good introduction to me. And I think that's where a lot of people start. So I kind of just look at it as it's there, but not really necessary anymore.
Got it. Cool.
I got a curious question. How do you compete within the Skillshare ecosystem? So you're in a pool with other instructors. You've probably got other instructors teaching similar topics. What is it? How is it that you can stand up and stand apart? Is it the titling of your courses? Is there like a feedback system inside the course where students give ratings, that kind of thing? Or how do you optimize your courses within that universe?
There is a rating system where you can leave a positive or negative review, and that affects trending. So a positive review is worth 10 points, and a negative review is worth negative 10 points. So the more positive reviews, the better for your class. And there are other teachers who teach After Effects. Obviously, you mentioned one of them, Fraser Davidson, has a class called Simple Character Animation, and he shows a very, very efficient way of animating a very cool looking character just walking. And that's the most successful After Effects class on the platform. I think he has 18,000 enrollments at this point. So, after I had like 9 classes, I was like, I would really love to do a character animation class, but I can't teach the same class he taught, but I want to teach kind of the same thing. So what can basically the defining factor difference between our classes is one, the class project. So instead of a character walking around, I showed you how to make basically a band member playing an instrument. And then number 2 is my teaching style and my method. I think that's another huge thing that just recently Skillshare has realized, that students will take a class on the exact same topic just to see how another person approaches the same type of problem. And I think that's a reason why my wife she's able to be successful too, because she's teaching how to do texturing in Photoshop in all these different ways, but it's in a way that no one else is teaching. So, she just did a watercolor texture class, and watercolor is a huge topic on Skillshare. But every time that watercolor pops up from whoever's teaching it, it seems like it's a success and it's trending, because watercolor is just a hot topic and people want to see, what can I do with watercolor and from this person's perspective.
Interesting.
I love that you talk about watercoloring being so popular on Skillshare, because I think people have these little skills that they could teach, and they might think that it's not going to earn them a good amount of money, but Skillshare disproves that. Right. And yeah, maybe not everything's popular on Skillshare, but I think there could potentially be an audience for anything on Skillshare.
Definitely. I would not count out something that's not on Skillshare, because my sister-in-law is a massage therapist, and she was visiting one weekend, and we thought, you should probably be teaching something on Skillshare. And I was like, well, obviously it should be massage therapy. I mean, something massage related. And I searched on Skillshare, massage, nothing. There's no category that it would fit in on Skillshare. And I was like, well, you know what? You're here for a weekend. Let's just film you giving my wife, some massages, and we'll write a script, and we'll record some VO, and I'll try and make some classes. And I planned out 4 classes from the footage we shot. And the first one was a foot massage. And so I edited that together. I put it up on the site. And in the first month, with absolutely no following online and no prior knowledge of an audience that would want to do massage classes on Skillshare, she got 400 students in her first month.
Wow.
So there's
awesome.
There's your proof. Anything can be successful on Skillshare, I think.
That's awesome. And what I like about it, I mean, I love Udemy, and I came from Udemy, so I kind of have this just connection with Udemy. But what I do like about Skillshare too is just the fact that you can't really give out, or I don't know, can you get out free? You can't give free enrollments to your class, and anyone who's in your class is a paid subscription member. And so when people do go to your course or to the list of courses, and they see your class having 10,000 students or 4,000 or 400, they know that those are real people that have paid a subscription to Skillshare and are a part of your course. And because it's a subscription, there's not a barrier for them to enroll in one of your classes if they're not a part of your class already. And so all you have to do is pop up in their search feed, pop up in their trending feed, or get in front of them some way and make your project or your class look cool. Because unlike Udemy, where there's a barrier of, I have to pay you more money to enroll in your class, all you have to do is have a class that looks or sounds cool to anybody that is already a subscriber on Skillshare. And I don't know how many students there are, but I think it's over 1 million maybe. And so, and that if you can get people in your class, you're going to make money. So
exactly,
there's lots of reasons to be on Skillshare.
And I think that's another reason. Sorry, I just one little tidbit. I think that's another reason why teaching regularly is such a kind of a way to put yourself on the fast track to becoming consistently successful on Skillshare, is because that is like one person can discover me this month and then see I have 12 other classes and enroll in all of those at no extra cost. And that's more income for me. So,
yep. That's great. Do you know, Jake, how Skillshare does marketing of their site? How they drive new subscribers to their site?
I don't. I've never really thought about how they advertise offline. I know they pay for ads on Facebook, but outside of that, no, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'd be curious to know that. Maybe Chad does. Chad, I think is on Skillshare, right, Chad?
Yeah. We had
Better job on social media via Facebook with sample Facebook video ads. Okay.
We had a
Interesting
question just about the being on camera aspect, because Udemy is pushing people to be on camera in their course, and almost to the extent that they won't approve your class if you're not. They'll really push it. And they're just asking if all screencast videos or courses are okay. And yes, that is true for Skillshare. It's okay to have all screencast videos.
My wife is
if anyone has any yeah if anyone has any more questions, we got a few more minutes, or if anyone wants to pop on and ask questions to Jake directly, we can open up our seat. Dave, I don't know if you have any other more questions. This has been a really great interview so far, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of people to try to be on Skillshare. I mean, $4,000 a month on Skillshare, I think that's incentive enough with 12 courses. Not that that's a little, but there's a lot of people listening who have a few courses or even more that could put them on Skillshare over the next few months.
Right.
So, Dave, you're going to get on Skillshare?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what is there to lose? Right?
Yeah, that's what I tell all my friends. I've tried to get so many people to teach.
Yeah. And like I was telling Jake and Phil before we started the show, I tried to get on Skillshare because I heard people were doing well on it. But this was a couple years ago, and you know, their instructor inboarding process was kind of weird, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but I just remembered that either it was too difficult or they didn't want me or something. So now I'll be coming in with 41 courses and see how I can chop those up and make them, not necessarily chop them up, but, you know, make them more project based. And that would be interesting to see how that works, which brought up another question. How do you guys see your Skillshare income? Does it fluctuate a lot, or is it pretty steady, and is it different for different instructors?
Jake answer that, and then I'll answer afterwards.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak for other instructors other than, you know, my wife, but I pretty much, like I mentioned before, that as a student's enrollment is basically worth anywhere between $1.40 and $2. That's typically the range that I see throughout the year. The amount of students that I get every month, you know, it's my goal to have 1,000 new enrollments from a new class in a single month. And then with all of the residual enrollments that I'm getting, I usually have over 2,000 in a month. Not every class is as big of a success. You know, I've had a class that was up for 6 months before it hit 1,000. So it's definitely something that fluctuates, but I can pretty much bank on a range, give or take $500, if I'm posting a new class every month.
Okay.
$500 additional, increasing by $500.
Well, depending on how how the new class performs, give or take 500, I can, you know, kind of estimate. But you know, every they pay on the 16th of the month, so every 16th I wake up and I'm like, oh boy, what did I make last month?
That's one thing that I really wish I could do, is predict more, which I don't know if they would even be able to know, but you don't have any,
Sounds tricky.
You don't have any dashboard or anything to predict. Like Jake said, it's halfway through the month and you get an email saying Skillshare has sent you X amount of money on PayPal. Yeah. For me, in terms of overall dollars, I must have been on it in 2014 because I have my income statements up, and at the start of 2015 I was making around $400 a month, and then it jumped up to about 1,000 in April, and that's after I posted some of my bigger photography courses, which I think are popular on Skillshare as well. And then it's just slowly increased. At the end of 2015, it was around 2,000. I had my first $3,000 month in December of 2015. And this year so far, it's been in the mid 3,000s 3,000s. I don't know if that's a word. And in February, I had like 5,000, which I think is because January was so huge, or December, January was so huge. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing for me. And it's just a slow growth. It's the same with Udemy. It's just for me putting out good content, classes consistently, and keeping at it, and not worrying about the pricing, the changes, anything, just doing my thing, making decent classes, getting better at what I do, and just, yeah, rolling with it.
You guys keep bringing up questions in my mind, so I got to ask this question. First, I love that they pay on the 16th because Udemy pays on the 1st, so that helps balance out the month, right? But the other question is there a danger to publishing too many courses all in one shot? Because I have a bunch of courses. Would it be better for me to publish maybe 2 a month steadily, or blast 5 or 10 up right away? Or what do you guys think would be a good strategy there?
My opinion is that you stagger them, just because I think there is such a thing as enrollment fatigue for a student. There's a teacher that was actually just featured in a blog post on Skillshare that she posts 1 new class a week, and it's on Illustrator or Photoshop. And I think her top class has 800 students in it, something like that. Most of her classes have only around 100, but because she's posting a new class every single week and people are enrolling at least 100 people into each class, that's 400, 500 students every month, and that's working for her. She's doing very bite-sized classes, so I think that's more feasible. For something that, like my field, I think I put a little bit more. I think it takes longer, basically, to explain my process. So that's why my goal is once a month. If I could do 2 a month, I probably would, but I don't think I'd ever go past 2 a month.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
advice.
I think I would totally agree, because also you're going to post a class, you're going to get some boost of students who are on there, and then every time you post a new class, like we said, your previous students get that email. So if you post all 5 courses or whatever in once, you're going to have 0 students to get the promo message for the new classes. Right. So I think staggering it is a good idea.
That's good. That's good.
Plus,
to know.
the student might have to decide which one of those 5 am I going to take, and then forget about the other 4. I mean, probably not, but
Yeah, you want to kind of feed it out to them slowly, little by little.
Yeah,
that's what I think works.
We had a question. Let me scroll up to it. What is the payment schedule? It's every 16th of the month. If a student retakes the class, do you get any money from the time they spend in the class the second time around? So I'm guessing,
no, just a one-time enrollment counting.
Unless they sign up for another user account or something and re-enrolled in your class,
or
something.
They canceled their account and maybe restarted their payment. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure. Cool. Well, any other questions from the audience? Anyone want to come aboard, chat with us for a minute or so? I know Jake's been kind enough to let us take an hour of his life. I really, really appreciate it. And
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
This is fun.
So Dave, you want to, if we don't have any questions, we got a question.
This has been
is it more beneficial to do a longer class or maybe a few micro classes? We kind of talked about that, but Jake, do you have a quick opinion?
I absolutely say chop it up, because if you can teach a large subject in 3 separate classes, then that's 3 times the number of enrollments potentially. And that's more beneficial for you, and it's more attractive to students to take a shorter class. At least that's what's been the case recently.
Yeah. So one last question. What would you say overall, just one inspiring message for someone who's new to teaching online, who's maybe on Udemy, who's maybe not, who's never thought about teaching a class on Skillshare? What would you tell them to just inspire them that they can do it with whatever skills they have?
Well, I mean, take my sister-in-law's story, for example. She had a subject, massage therapy, that wasn't even existent on Skillshare's platform. And, she had the benefit of having a brother-in-law who knew what he was doing in how to produce a class, but students just want to see your process. And if you don't want to be on camera, you can make slides on PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever, and just talk to the students as if you were teaching somebody who's in the room with you, and just explain your process clearly and concisely. And I think people would be interested. I mean, I don't know the limits to what topics are going to be successful, but I don't think I've seen a single topic that hasn't proved to be at least have the potential to be successful on Skillshare.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being here, Jake. Everyone can visit us at our Facebook page, which I'm going to post. We got one more question. Let's answer it because we got it. Who is seen as selling the course, Skillshare or the teacher? I asked because I'm in the UK, and I believe if it's the teacher, that would introduce needing to charge VAT, taxes for people who purchase in EU.
That's a good question.
Yeah, they might handle that, but at least for now, us instructors, we don't deal with that. So I'm not.
They just pay directly through PayPal to us.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Dave, you want to close it out for everyone?
Yeah, I do. Chad said we need some intro and outro music, so
nice.
Make it easy. I mean, it's on Pandora. What can I do? It's a good thing it didn't pick some kind of crude hip hop song or something, right?
Perfect. Love it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been awesome. Thank you so much, Jake, for joining us here tonight. Wow, what an eye-opening way to learn more about Skillshare. Check out that cool professional fade I'm doing on the music. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And this is another one of those shows that I'm going to go back to the recording and listen to more carefully. And you got me hooked on the idea. So you're going to see me on Skillshare along with you guys.
All right.
And I think it's a great opportunity and a great option for a lot of Udemy instructors. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And thank you all. Have a good night. And we'll see you next week on the Passive Income Show.
Bye, guys.
Bye.